What do you think their agenda is by doing this?
The agenda is that they want a portion of the $3 trillion bill that Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats just put through to bail them out of the mismanagement of the money prior to the pandemic. Because the federal government is actually paying for all the COVID tests, they're paying for all the hospital costs, they're paying for all the health care costs. So what additional cost is there? It's the loss of tax revenues by closing down the economy.
What about the theory that there's a socialist agenda to wipe out the middle class and make them more dependent on the government?
Yes, I believe that there is a socialist. It's a big agenda. I think it even goes deeper. It's more of the world view, of the globalist view, and that's all it boils down to, is a global economy. That's why most of the Democrats, including my opponent, is very favorable of China. If you look back and you realize all of the generic drugs, all of the active ingredients of all the generic drugs worldwide, 86% of those active ingredients are controlled by China. Even Pakistan and India have come out and said it is a national threat to their countries. America no longer produces any of the antibiotics. We don't produce any vitamins. We don't produce the antidote to anthrax. We don't produce anything in America anymore pertaining to generic drugs. If we do, we still get the active ingredient from China. China during this pandemic has already threatened holding back medications. Now think of this one thing about the national security interest. All of our military, all of the VA, they get all of their drugs from China. Even the active duty on the ships get their drugs from China. Think about that for a minute. This is a national security issue, and I've been talking about this for 2 years now.
I guess Americans are not even cognizant of the notion that China would try to undermine, in this rivalry, try to undermine us through nefarious means.
China, going back 30 years, has put it into their agenda, okay, to be the world dominant military and economic force, and they have been implementing it. They put in the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. They want to control all supply chains over land and across the sea. So they've been loaning tremendous amounts of money to third world countries that can't afford it. When they can't make the payments, they take that resource. If it's a port, if it's bridges, if it's trucking, whatever it is, they take it back from them because that's the collateral. If the utility companies, they'll build utility plants for them. If they can't pay the payments, they own that utility company. China has very secretly, under the radar, been taking control of the economy worldwide, and America's got to step up to the plate. And I think that is what President Trump has been doing in his negotiations. But it's so detailed, so involved, that most people wouldn't understand it.
So when he claims he's a war president, is it kind of a Cold War that we're involved in?
Yes. If you look at this virus, okay, the virus, if you go back 9 years ago, in Alabama, in a virology lab at one of the universities, Dr. Fauci and several other virologists were looking at the added feature to the virus. 200 scientists then said, no, if this ever was accomplished and it got out, it would create a world pandemic where millions of people would die. So they said no, they banned it, they pulled out. The NIAID, under Dr. Fauci.
National Institutes of Health?
Yes. Well, the National Institute and Allergy Institute of Health, it's one of the segments under the National Institute of Health, which is there's 27 of them, and Fauci is one of the directors of that one. Okay, that's where the funding came from for the virology lab in Wuhan. So you look at China's response to it. It was a definite effort to spread the disease worldwide. Once it was, whether it was purposely released or accidentally, it doesn't matter. They purposely spread it throughout the world.
By not stopping the travel out of Wuhan?
By not stopping the travel out of Wuhan, but they stopped the travel from Wuhan to Beijing and Shanghai. Okay, you couldn't leave Wuhan to the rest of China. That's how they controlled it. But they allowed 5 million people to leave Wuhan to all other parts of the world. This is why in January 30th, once President Trump was informed it was really a pandemic, it was going to be a problem, he stopped all travel of Chinese people to America. In January 31st, Nancy Pelosi and my opponent came right out and said, you're a xenophobe, you're a racist, you're that. They wanted to pass a bill to ban him from regulating the travel into America. It was probably one of the best things he did right off the bat.
What do you think about the allegations then that if someone is against calling it the Chinese virus or even viewing China as an enemy, that the Democrats and probably certainly left will try to taint it as a form of racial discrimination?
This is what the Democrats have constantly done, is kind of labeled everything racist. And so it doesn't surprise me. Every pandemic, every major disease out there, you name it from the country that it's come from. So it's identifier, and that's all it is. It's not racist or anything else. It's a crock of garbage.
When we were in a Cold War with Russia, no one thought that it was an ethnic bias.
Right. No, it isn't an ethnic bias. It's just that's where it came from. It came from the Wuhan lab, virology lab in China, calling it, the Chinese people actually call it the CCP virus, the Communist Chinese Party virus. That's what they call it. If you look at Epoch Times, that's exactly what they call it. They have no problem calling it that. It's the identifier of where it originated, where it came from. COVID is the Chinese originated virus in December of 2019. That's what COVID-19 stands for.
Where can people find out more about your campaign?
My website is markreedforcongress.com. My Twitter handle is @markreed1776. You can get onto my Facebook directly from there as well. And I also have a podcast, and my co-host is a Southern Democrat, and we talk about the issues. It's a politically motivated podcast. So it's on every Thursday night at 7 o'clock on latalkradio.com, and it's called The Voice of Reason. Absolutely. Thank you again. All righty.